The oppressive weight of plush silk sheets, far too heavy and stifling for my usual preference, was the first jarring sensation, a stark contrast to the threadbare cotton I remembered. A headache, dull and insistent, throbbed behind my eyes, each pulse echoing the bewildering unfamiliarity of my surroundings. The scent of jasmine and something vaguely metallic, like expensive old money and polished brass, clung to the air, cloying and rich. I cracked open my eyelids, and the world swam into focus, a dizzying blur of ornate gold leaf, a massive rococo dresser gleaming beneath crystal chandeliers, and a sprawling four-poster bed draped in crimson velvet. This certainly wasn't my cramped, slightly too warm apartment. The vertigo lessened, replaced by a cold dread that snaked through my veins. This room, this entire aesthetic, it was eerily familiar. Too familiar. I sat bolt upright, the unfamiliar weight of my breasts shifting beneath the silk nightgown that clung to me like a second skin. My hands, slender and perfectly manicured, shot up to brush against the cascade of dark, impossibly glossy hair that framed a face I knew, yet didn't. Elise Vance. The name rang in my head like a tolling bell, a siren song of impending doom. My own heart hammered against my ribs, an erratic drumbeat of panic. This couldn't be happening. Not again. My previous life had ended with a particularly aggressive SUV and a rather undignified splat. I'd thought that was it. Darkness, oblivion, maybe a celestial HR department to assign my next reincarnation. Instead, I'd apparently landed smack dab in the middle of a love-chasing novel, a genre I'd devoured like candy in my previous life for its sheer, unadulterated escapism. And not just any character. I was Elise Vance, the quintessential cannon fodder, the stepping stone, the experience pack for the female lead. A shiver not of cold, but of pure existential horror traced its way down my spine. My existence, in the pages of that infuriatingly popular novel, was a tragicomic masterpiece of bad decisions. Elise, the original, was a starry-eyed heiress, blinded by her infatuation with the angelic and manipulative female lead, Anya Petrova. Anya, with her wide, innocent eyes and a smile that promised wildflowers and endless summer, was a black hole for Elise's affections, and, more importantly, her family's vast fortune. The book's plot was straightforward. Elise would chase Anya, lavish her with gifts, support her every whim, and act as a convenient antagonist for Anya's love interests. The enigmatic and surprisingly alluring female villain, Serena Thorne. Then came the kicker. Around chapter 4, after being thoroughly drained emotionally and financially, original Elise would succumb to a tragic, yet entirely avoidable, accident while trying to impress Anya. Her death would serve as a catalyst for Anya and Serena's growth, igniting their endless dance of she chases while the other runs. Oh, and just for good measure, Anya would neatly swindle the remnants of Elise's significant inheritance, and Serena, somehow convinced by Anya, would help her steal all of Elise's rich family's wealth after Elise's death. It was a spectacular train wreck, and I was slated to be the main course. Hell no, I muttered, the words rasping in a voice that was both mine and jarringly unfamiliar, honeyed and smooth like expensive whiskey. It was clear, even in my current state of bewilderment, that I was not going to be anyone's sacrifice. I wasn't going to chase some saccharine, manipulative narcissist, only to end up dead and penniless. The sheer thought of it sent a wave of nausea through me, a chilling echo of that SUV's impact. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my bare feet sinking into a sheepskin rug, so impossibly soft it felt like walking on clouds. The room was bathed in the soft, diffused light of a pre-dawn winter morning, filtering through heavy velvet drapes. My reflection stared back at me from a full-length mirror, a stranger with familiar features. Dark, voluminous hair, startlingly violet eyes framed by long, thick lashes, a nose that was perhaps a little too aristocratic, and lips that looked perpetually pouty even in repose. The body beneath the silk was slender, gracefully proportioned, and carried itself with an innate elegance that wasn't mine. Not really. Elise Vance was objectively stunning. Her family, the Vance Corporation, was a titan in global finance and cutting-edge technology, their influence spanning continents. And her business acumen? In the original novel, snippets of Elise's early pre-Anya life hinted at an almost savant-like ability to predict market trends and close, impossible deals. She was essentially a financial prodigy, a force of nature whose potential was tragically squandered on a manipulative romance. All of that now was mine. The wealth, the power, the impeccable business skills, and this undeniably beautiful body. It was a shame truly that the original Elise Vance hadn't had a brain cells to rub together when it came to matters of the heart. But now I had a brain, a very pissed off, transmigrated brain that was plotting like a supervillain already. The priorities were crystal clear. Dodge. Death. No chasing Anya, no tragic accidents. Survival first and foremost. Protect assets. My new family's wealth was now my wealth, and I wasn't about to let it be pilfered by a conniving FL or her unwitting accomplice. Rewrite the script. This was a chance, a bizarre, improbable second chance. Why follow a pre-written tragedy when I could script my own glorious comedy, or, better yet, a triumphant sapphic romance where I was the lead? The first order of business: immediate, unequivocal cessation of all contact with Anya Petrova. The thought of her saccharine smile and manipulative charm made my stomach churn. I felt a surge of uncharacteristic protectiveness, not for my former self, but for the vast potential locked within this new identity. This was my life now, and I would live it on my own damn terms. My gaze drifted back to the mirror, and a faint, almost imperceptible smirk tugged at the corner of my new lips. The original Elise was a lovesick fool. I, however, was a woman with a plan and an intimate knowledge of the enemy's playbook. This was going to be fun. The next few days were a blur of calculated moves. I began by subtly disentangling Elise's social life from Anya's orbit. Conveniently, the novel hadn't progressed far enough for them to be utterly inseparable, just deeply entangled by Elise's relentless pursuit. I cancelled plans, citing a sudden, mysterious business emergency, and then a flu-like illness. My family's vast network of personal assistants, private chefs, and security detail initially seemed confused by my sudden reclusiveness and refusal to attend the usual glittering social events, but they quickly adapted to my new, firmer directives. My parents, Lord and Lady Vance, were often travelling the globe, overseeing their empire, and frankly were used to Elise's eccentricities. A sudden, intense focus on corporate strategy was probably more welcome than her usual frivolous pursuits. The real game began with Serena Thorne, the so-called female villain. In the book, Serena was a brilliant but impoverished student, burdened by family debt and a younger sister to protect. Her sharp intellect and fierce loyalty were twisted by Anya, who initially played the role of a compassionate patron, convincing Serena that stealing from the ostentatious, cruel Elise Vance was a necessary evil to protect her loved ones. The irony was Anya was the truly cruel one. I located Serena through the Vance Corporation's extensive alumni network, a highly selective scholarship program that Elise's family secretly funded at several prestigious universities. Serena Thorne, with her startlingly intelligent mind and impressive academic record, was one of its recipients, though she wouldn't know the full extent of the scholarship's benefactor. My first interaction with Serena happened via an email that I dictated to my personal assistant, a stern and impeccably efficient woman named Miss Albright. My voice, as I spoke, was calm, authoritative. Miss Albright, please draft an email to Miss Serena Thorne. Subject, Vance Scholarship Review. The body should state that due to her exceptional academic performance, the Vance Corporation wishes to extend her full scholarship to include all living expenses, personal academic resources, and an unconditional stipend for her family's healthcare needs. Make it clear this is a recognition of her merit, not a loan, and that she is not expected to repay it. Also, subtly offer an opportunity for a fully funded summer internship within Vance Corp's R&D division, if she is interested. Miss Albright's perfectly sculpted eyebrow twitched, a subtle sign of surprise, but she merely nodded, her fingers already flying across her tablet. Immediately, Miss Vance. I leaned back in the plush leather chair of my inherited, ridiculously oversized home office, a triumphant smile slowly spreading across my face. This wasn't just about kindness, it was about strategic intervention. Anya's primary leverage over Serena was her family's financial desperation. By eliminating that desperation, I was ripping the rug out from under Anya's manipulative feet. Plus, a fully funded internship within one of the world's leading tech companies. That was an offer even Serena's guarded cynicism couldn't refuse. It would bring her into my orbit, give me a chance to actually meet her, rather than just observe her from afar, as the book's Elise had done. A few days later, a stiff, formal email landed in my inbox, forwarded by Miss Albright. It was from Serena Thorne. The language was precise, almost wary, expressing profound gratitude tempered with a cautious curiosity. She accepted the scholarship extension and, to my delight, provisionally accepted the summer internship offer, requesting further details. Good, I cackled in my office, ignoring weird looks as I clicked open the attachment that showed her academic transcript. Stellar. Beyond stellar. This woman was a genius, a diamond waiting to be polished. The thought ignited a genuine warmth in my chest, a feeling far more satisfying than the fleeting, empty thrill of chasing after Anya. My next step was to orchestrate a chance encounter. I had Miss Albright arrange for a small, exclusive gathering of scholarship recipients to meet with Vance Corporation representatives myself, primarily at one of our less opulent, but still undeniably impressive philanthropic centres. The setting was designed to be imposing yet welcoming, professional yet approachable. It was a carefully constructed tableau, and I was going to be the benevolent patron. The day of the meeting arrived, cloaked in a persistent drizzle that softened the harsh edges of the city. I chose an outfit that projected competence and quiet sophistication. A charcoal grey tailored pantsuit, a crisp white silk blouse, and minimalist silver jewellery. My hair was pulled back into a sleek, low ponytail, accentuating the sharp lines of my jaw. My makeup was subtle, emphasising my violet eyes without making me look like I was trying too hard. This wasn't an attempt to seduce, it was an attempt to establish a new dynamic. The room, a spacious, high-ceilinged conference hall with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a manicured garden, was already hushed with anticipation when I arrived. A dozen or so bright-eyed, slightly nervous students milled about, clutching portfolios and exchanging tentative smiles. My gaze immediately scanned the room for her. And then I saw her. Serena Thorne. She stood a little apart from the others, near a window, her profile etched against the grey light. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple, no-nonsense braid, and she wore a practical, dark blue blazer over a plain white shirt, conservative and neat. But what truly captivated me were her eyes. They were a brilliant, piercing green, sharp and intelligent, with a hint of something fiercely protective, a guardedness that pulled at something deep within me. She wasn't conventionally beautiful in the way Anya was, with her delicate features and ethereal aura. Serena was striking, possessing a kind of raw, undeniable strength that emanated from her poised posture and the intelligent intensity in her gaze. As I walked in, accompanied by Miss Albright and a couple of other Vance Corporation executives, a hush fell over the room. All eyes turned to me. I felt a familiar surge of power, a sensation that had been vaguely present as Elise Vance, but now felt entirely my own. This was my stage, my narrative. "Good morning," I said, my voice resonating with a calm authority that I barely recognized as my own. I moved to the front of the room, taking a moment to survey each student, letting my gaze linger on Serena for a fraction of a second longer than the others. "I'm Elise Vance. On behalf of the Vance Corporation, I want to personally congratulate each of you on your outstanding achievements. Your dedication and brilliance are exactly what we hope to foster through our scholarship program." I launched into a brief, articulate speech, emphasizing the Vance Corp's commitment to nurturing raw talent, to innovation, and to creating a future shaped by brilliant minds like theirs. My words were carefully chosen, designed to inspire confidence and highlight opportunity, rather than to merely boast of our wealth. As I spoke, I noticed Serena's eyes tracking my every movement, her expression unreadable, a blend of polite attention and innate skepticism. It was precisely what I expected. She wasn't easily impressed, a quality I found surprisingly refreshing. I had to stop myself from running over and blurting that I was a huge fan. After my address, I opened the floor for questions, moving amongst the students, engaging with each of them, offering words of encouragement and genuine interest. When I finally made my way to Serena, she was still standing by the window, a pen clutched in her hand, a notebook held loosely in the other. "Miss Thorne," I began, my voice deliberately softer, more personal, "your academic record is truly exceptional. We at Vance Corp have been particularly impressed with your research in quantum computing." Her green eyes, previously veiled, suddenly sharpened, a flicker of genuine interest animating them. "Thank you, Miss Vance," she replied, her voice low and even, with a surprising depth that sent a pleasant shiver down my arm. "I am grateful for the opportunity and the extended scholarship. It makes a significant difference." "I have no doubt it does," I said, offering her a genuine, open smile, one that wasn't rehearsed or calculated for social interaction, but born of a real admiration for her intelligence. "The R&D internship offer stands, of course. We'd be honoured to have you." She met my gaze directly, and for a moment the guardedness in her eyes seemed to recede, replaced by a flicker of surprise, perhaps even a nascent trust. "I'm reviewing the details," she said, nodding slowly. "It sounds promising. I confess I typically don't apply for corporate internships, but the scope of your R&D projects is quite compelling." "We believe in pushing boundaries," I responded, my voice gaining a hint of excitement as I spoke about the work I now technically oversaw. "And we believe in empowering those who can push them further. Your insights, Miss Thorne, would be invaluable." Just as our conversation was deepening, poised on the precipice of something meaningful, a figure swept into the room, a veritable whirlwind of effervescent charm and delicate beauty. Anya Petrova. My inner self recoiled. She wore a flowing, pale pink dress that seemed to shimmer even in the subdued light, her golden hair catching the light like a halo. Her eyes, a startling blue, were wide and innocent, brimming with an almost theatrical sweetness. Her signature smile, the one that had captivated so many, including the original Elise, was plastered on her face as she glided towards me, her movements practiced and graceful. "Elise, darling," she trilled, her voice like tinkling bells. airily dismissing the other student's presence. She reached for my hand, her touch feathery and warm, and squeezed it with an intimacy that made my skin crawl. I simply had to come and support you. I heard you were meeting with these brilliant young minds, and I just knew I had to witness your generosity firsthand. You're always doing such wonderful things. My smile remained firmly in place, but my grip on her hand was firm, not yielding to her delicate pressure. Anya, I said, my voice cool and devoid of the fawning adoration that Elise usually reserved for her. What a surprise. I didn't realize you were on the guest list. Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second, her blue eyes widening in a performance of wounded innocence. Oh, darling, I simply assumed. We always support each other's endeavours, don't we? She then turned her gaze towards Serena, her eyes sweeping over Serena's practical attire, with a fleeting, almost imperceptible disdain, before settling back on her face with a saccharine sweetness. And who is this lovely young woman? Another of Elise's brilliant discoveries, I presume? My jaw tightened imperceptibly. This was it, the very beginning of Anya's manipulative charm offensive towards Serena. In the book, this chance meeting was orchestrated by Anya, who would then proceed to ply Serena with compliments and false camaraderie, slowly chipping away at her self-reliance and drawing her into her web. I stepped slightly forward, subtly placing myself between Anya and Serena, a protective barrier. This is Miss Serena Thorne, I stated, my voice firm. Another exceptional Vance scholar. We were just discussing her groundbreaking work in quantum computing. Anya's smile remained fixed, but her eyes held a new, calculating gleam. Quantum computing? How fascinating! I confess I'm completely out of my depth with such complex matters, but I so admire intellectual prowess. You must tell me all about it sometime, Miss Thorne. Perhaps over coffee or a delightful afternoon tea? She batted her eyelashes, a seemingly innocent invitation that, in the novel, was the first step in her insidious seduction of Serena, slowly gaining her trust to manipulate her. I felt a cold rage begin to simmer, a deep, protective instinct rising within me. No, not on my watch. I was not going to let a single one of these predicted plot points unfold. I looked at Serena, catching her gaze. She was watching Anya with that same wary, intelligent skepticism, though a flicker of curiosity, perhaps even a fleeting desire for connection, played in her eyes. Anya's charm was potent, I had to admit, even if I saw right through it. Actually, Anya, I interjected smoothly, my words cutting through the air like a finely sharpened blade. Miss Thorne is rather busy. Our R&D department has already requested her presence and expertise for an upcoming conference, and we have several internal meetings to discuss her potential involvement. Her time is quite valuable. I emphasised our R&D department and her potential involvement to subtly highlight Serena's importance to Vance Corp, not just to Elise personally, and to subtly assert that Serena was my investment, my project. Anya's carefully constructed facade cracked a little further. Her smile became strained, her blue eyes darting between Serena and me, searching for weakness, for a hint of the usual fawning adoration she expected from me. She found none. Serena, for her part, simply watched the exchange, her green eyes moving from Anya to me, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk touching the corners of her lips. She seemed to be enjoying the show. She inclined her head slightly towards me, a gesture of quiet acknowledgement. Miss Vance is correct, she said, her voice dry, a subtle hint of amusement in her tone. My schedule is rather full with Vance Corporation commitments, but thank you for the charming offer, Miss Petrova. The subtle rebuke, wrapped in polite formality, was magnificent. It subtly communicated that Serena wasn't easily swayed, and that her priorities were already aligned with mine. Anya's smile finally vanished, replaced by a flash of genuine irritation that she quickly masked. She opened her mouth, no doubt, to launch into another manipulative tirade, but I cut her off. "Now, if you will excuse us, Anya," I said, a cool dismissal in my tone that would have shocked the original Elise Vance to her core. I linked my arm lightly with Serena's, a deliberate, possessive gesture that was both subtle and undeniably proprietorial. I was just about to show Miss Thorne some of our new research facilities. "We have a rather exciting lab. I think she'll find particularly stimulating." My voice deepened conspiratorially, directed solely at Serena. "It's quite exclusive, not usually open to visitors, but I think you'll appreciate the sensitivity of the information." Serena's eyes, bright with genuine professional interest, shifted to my face, and she offered me a small, genuine smile, a faint dimple appearing on her cheek. "I would be honoured, Miss Vance," she said, her voice betraying a hint of excitement. With a final, cool nod to a seething Anya, who now looked like a cat that had its cream snatched away, I led Serena away, steering her towards an exit that led to a private tour. As we walked, I felt the phantom weight of Anya's furious gaze on my back, but I didn't care. I felt a lightness in my step, a thrill of vindication. I had just intercepted a key plot point, and I had done so with flair. The first thread of the original Elise's doomed fate had been snipped, and the female villain, far from being seduced by the female lead, was now walking beside me, a nascent ally, her intellect sparking with the promise of collaboration. This was going exactly as planned. Or, rather, exactly as I planned. "Please, Serena," I said, turning to her once we were out of Anya's earshot, the sounds of her polite departure echoing faintly behind us. The crisp winter air hit us as we stepped into a private sky bridge connecting the pavilion to the main R&D tower, and the scent of damp earth and distant city fumes replaced the cloying perfume of the conference room. "Call me Elise, and I hope you truly don't mind our rather abrupt exit. Anya has a tendency to monopolize conversations, and I genuinely wanted to show you the lab." I gestured to the sleek steel and glass corridor ahead. Serena's lips twitched again, that faint, captivating smirk returning. "Elise," she repeated, tasting the name. "No, I don't mind. I appreciate the rescue. And I confess Miss Petrova's presence became rather tiresome." Her eyes, luminous green, met mine, and a shared, silent amusement passed between us. "Quantum entanglement, you said? Are you truly expecting me to simply appreciate it?" She raised an eyebrow, a challenge in her gaze. "I expect to pick it apart, understand its nuances, and perhaps offer some improvements." I laughed, a genuine, delighted sound that felt warm and unfamiliar on my tongue. "Exactly what I was hoping to hear, Serena," I said, squeezing her arm lightly, an unconscious gesture of camaraderie. "That's exactly what I was hoping to hear." The path ahead, illuminated by the soft glow of embedded floor lights, felt clear and exhilarating. My new life had just truly begun. The Sky Bridge, a marvel of Vance Corporation engineering, hummed faintly beneath our feet, a whisper of power guiding us across the city's winter tapestry. Even amidst the sprawling urban landscape, the path we walked felt like a secluded corridor, an intimate space. Outside, the persistent drizzle painted the world in muted greys, blurring the sharp edges of skyscrapers. But inside, the light was clear, almost luminous. "It's true," I confessed, my voice a low murmur, the easy familiarity of the shared moment settling comfortably between us. "That quantum entanglement lab is quite exclusive. My father insisted on stringent security protocols when it was built. He often says that true innovation thrives only in protected spaces, which is insulated from corporate espionage, but also from distractions." I glanced at Serena, a subtle arch of my brow implying both Anya and, perhaps, the stifling social scene I was trying to escape. Serena chuckled, a soft, rich sound that surprised me with its warmth. A wise man, your father, she observed, her green eyes twinkling with a shared secret. Secrecy is often the cradle of genius. But I also believe in the power of collaboration, of open exchange, once the core ideas are robust enough to withstand scrutiny. Precisely, I agreed, a genuine spark of enthusiasm igniting within me. That's why I'm hoping to shift some of our internal policies, to foster a more dynamic, collaborative innovation ecosystem, especially with talents like yours. We have the resources, the infrastructure, but sometimes a fresh perspective is truly invaluable. We arrived at a set of heavy, reinforced doors, emblazoned with the Vance Corporation's stylized V logo, glowing faintly. My thumbprint and retinal scan were silently authenticated, and the doors glided open with a soft sigh of hydraulics, revealing a world apart. The air inside the lab was noticeably cooler, dry and sterile, carrying the sharp, clean scent of ozone and something faintly metallic. The lighting was mostly diffused, emanating from the smooth, white walls and ceiling panels, highlighting the sleek, polished surfaces of advanced machinery. The lab was vast, a cathedral of cutting-edge technology. Massive, gleaming cylindrical structures, likely cryostats, rose from the floor, connected by intricate networks of shimmering conduits and fiber-optic cables that snaked across the raised floor. Control panels glowed with complex data displays, and here and there, white-coated scientists moved with focused intensity, their presence adding a quiet hum of human activity to the subtle whir and pulse of the machines. My gaze drifted to Serena, eager to gauge her reaction. Her usual guardedness had dissolved, replaced by an expression of pure, unadulterated awe. Her eyes, usually so keen and analytical, darted around, taking in every detail the quantum processors housed within their shielded environments, the high-precision laser systems, the intricate wiring that seemed to breathe with intelligent design. A small, almost imperceptible gasp escaped her lips, and she unconsciously tightened her grip on the strap of her bag, as if steadying herself against the sheer magnitude of what she was witnessing. "This is extraordinary," she breathed, her voice hushed, reverent. She strode purposefully towards one of the central consoles, her fingers hovering just above a display showing an abstract, vibrant representation of entangled qubits. The fidelity, the coherence times. I've only seen specs like these in theoretical papers. This isn't just research, she turned to me, her eyes blazing with an almost childlike wonder. This is pioneering. A warmth spread through my chest, a gratifying pleasure at her genuine excitement. This was a completely different kind of satisfaction than the empty flattery I received from Anya. This was recognition given from one brilliant mind to another. "We believe so," I replied, stepping closer, allowing her proximity to become a natural, comfortable thing. "We've invested heavily, as you might imagine. The potential applications are limitless." "Limitless indeed," Serena murmured, tracing a line on the display with her finger, a concentrated frown now on her brow. "Imagine the secure communication protocols, the computational power for complex simulations, drug discovery, material science. This could revolutionize entire industries." She paused, then glanced back at me, a playful challenge in her eyes. "You said you have specific projects in mind for the R&D internship. I'm quite certain my time is rather valuable now." I chuckled, appreciating her wit. "Indeed, it is. And yes, we have several. But frankly, Serena, your work in quantum error correction and topological quantum computing caught my eye specifically. We're facing challenges with decoherence that your models could significantly mitigate. I don't just want you to intern. I want you to actively contribute to bring your unique perspective to our most pressing issues." I gestured to the vastness of the lab. "This is your sandbox. if you choose to play. Her gaze lingered on my face for a moment, those intelligent green eyes searching mine as if attempting to decipher a hidden motive. For the first time, I felt vulnerable, exposed. The original Elise would have fumbled, stammered, tried too hard, but I simply met her gaze, an open, honest expression on my face. There was no agenda here beyond genuine collaboration, and perhaps a deeper connection with a remarkable woman. Finally, a slow smile spread across her face, transforming her features from sharp intellect to something disarmingly charming. "A sandbox, you say?" she repeated, her voice laced with amusement. "Well, Miss Vance, I do enjoy playing in a well-equipped sandbox." Over the next few months, that sandbox became our world. Serena accepted the internship, initially for the summer, but her contributions were so significant, her insights so profound, that it quickly evolved into a year-long consultancy, seamlessly integrating into her doctoral studies. She was a whirlwind of focused energy, her sharp mind slicing through complex problems with an almost frightening efficiency. I found myself drawn to her not just professionally, but personally. Our days were often a blend of intense work sessions in the lab, the low hum of the cryostats and the quiet flicker of data displays becoming a comforting backdrop to our discussions, and long, meandering conversations over coffee in the executive lounge. I learned about her meticulous research, her family struggles, the weight of responsibility she carried for her younger sister, Maya. Maya was a bright, curious girl whose dreams of attending a specialized arts academy were constantly threatened by the family's financial tightrope walk. It was this struggle that Anya had exploited in the novel, twisting Serena's fierce devotion into a weapon against Elise. But now, with the Vance Scholarship fully covering Maya's future education, that particular lever had been disarmed. I started to notice the little things about Serena, the way her brow would furrow in concentration, forming a delicate line between her dark eyebrows, the rare, genuine smiles that would light up her entire face, revealing a warmth that belied her often stoic exterior. The subtle scent of paper and something vaguely scientific like ozone and clean linen that always clung to her. She, in turn, seemed to relax around me. Her initial wariness, a shield forged from years of hardship and judgment, slowly began to lower. We'd discuss everything from the philosophical implications of quantum mechanics to the latest political scandals, and I found myself hanging on her every word. Her perspective was always fresh, unburdened by the cynicism of my own past life, or the sheltered naivete of the original Elise. She saw the world with a clear, unwavering gaze, accepting its flaws but always striving for its potential. One evening, after a particularly grueling session debugging a new quantum algorithm, we found ourselves alone in the lab, the soft glow of the consoles casting long shadows. It was late, the city lights twinkling outside the massive windows like scattered diamonds. "That's enough for today, I think, Serena," I said, stretching, my back protesting the hours spent hunched over a terminal. "You've been at it for hours. Even quantum physicists need to eat." She turned from the console, rubbing her tired eyes. I was so close to a breakthrough. But you're right, my stomach is staging a protest. She offered a small, tired smile. "Come," I said, a sudden impulse taking hold. "Let me treat you to dinner. No business talk, just a reprieve." She hesitated, her gaze dropping to her practical jeans and a slightly rumpled Vance Corp t-shirt. "I'm not exactly dressed for a fancy restaurant, Elise." I waved off her concern, a dismissive flick of my hand. "Nonsense. You're dressed for brilliance. Besides, I know a little place. Very discreet, fantastic food, and they won't bat an eye at a woman wearing whatever she pleases." My words held a double meaning, a subtle jab at the restrictive world of social expectations we often navigated. She studied me, a thoughtful glint in her eyes, before that slow, warm smile graced her lips again. "All right, Elise, lead the way." We ended up at a cosy, dimly lit bistro, tucked away on a cobblestone side street, far from the usual haunts of the city's elite. The scent of roasted garlic and herbs hung in the air, mingling with the rich aroma of red wine. We sat at a secluded corner table, the soft glow of candlelight dancing across her intelligent features. I watched her as she savoured her food, her appreciation for the simple, perfectly cooked meal, a stark contrast to the often pretentious palates of my usual acquaintances. The conversation flowed easily, moving from quantum mechanics to art, to books, to childhood memories. She spoke about her parents' unwavering support despite their struggles, and the fierce joy she felt when Maya finally received her acceptance letter to the Arts Academy, a future now secured by the Vance Scholarship. I found myself sharing more than I ever intended to. Details about my own stifled childhood, the expectations, the pressure, the feeling of being an extension of the Vance name rather than a person in my own right. There was no judgment in her eyes, only an attentive, empathetic understanding. As the evening wore on, and the wine loosened our tongues, our hands found their way closer on the table, sometimes brushing, a fleeting electric contact. The air between us thrummed with unspoken things, with a growing intimacy that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. When it was time to leave, the city outside was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. I offered to drive her home. The ride was equally quiet, comfortable. As I pulled up to her modest apartment building, her hand rested lightly on the door handle, but she didn't open it immediately. She turned to me, her green eyes luminous in the near darkness of the car's interior. "Thank you, Elise," she said, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "This was exactly what I needed, more than I expected." "The pleasure was all mine, Serena," I replied, my gaze lingering on her lips. The urge to close the small distance between us was almost overwhelming, a visceral ache in my chest. This wasn't just about saving myself from a bad novel plot anymore. This was real. This was a connection I hadn't known I craved. She leaned in, and for a heart-stopping moment, I thought she would kiss me. Instead, she pressed a soft, warm kiss to my cheek, a feather-light touch that sent shivers down my spine. "Good night, Elise," she murmured, a hint of something deeper in her voice. And then she was gone, a silhouette disappearing into the building. I sat there for a long moment, the scent of her, subtle and clean, lingering in the air. My heart was pounding, a wild, joyful rhythm. Yes, this was definitely light-hearted and absolutely, unequivocally exhilarating. My sense of peace, however, was as fragile as spun glass, bound to shatter. Anya Petrova, scorned and increasingly desperate, was not one to fade quietly into the background. Her calls, once demanding and frequent, had dwindled to intermittent, passive-aggressive text. "Missing you, darling, why are you avoiding all our favourite spots?" Or, "Heard you're spending so much time at the lab. Don't work yourself to death, my sweet Elise." The undertone was always the same. "I know what you're doing. I'm watching." But I was watching too, and I knew her playbook better than she knew herself. The book detailed Anya's descent into increasingly malicious actions as Elise pulled away. Her attempts to isolate Elise socially, to spread rumours, to undermine her business decisions, all failed spectacularly now that Elise actually had a brain and a team of competent professionals protecting her. Anya's greatest weapon had always been her perceived innocence and the way she could turn people against each other without getting her own hands dirty. She excelled at subtle manipulation, planting seeds of doubt and jealousy. However, The one constant in Anya's spiral was her unwavering determination to hurt those who defied her, especially if they dared to steal her spotlight, or worse, her future intended victim. The next significant plot point in the novel was Anya's attempt to sever Serena from any potential benefactors. In the original timeline, this happened when Serena's sister, Maya, entered the picture as an aspiring ballet dancer. Anya, feigning concern, would warn Elise that a serious, potentially career-ending injury was not uncommon in ballet, particularly with the rigorous training Maya was undertaking. She would then subtly orchestrate an accident without directly implicating herself, making it appear as if Elise's lavish support had somehow led to the family's misfortune. The ultimate goal was to make Serena dependent solely on her and to use the tragedy to further paint Elise as callous and uncaring. This included framing Elise for attempting to kill Maya by tampering with her car's brake lines. I often called Serena just to hear about Maya's progress, the excitement in her voice when she described Maya's passion for dance. Maya, a vivacious 14-year-old with Serena's sharp green eyes and boundless energy, was flourishing in the Arts Academy. The Vance Scholarship meant she had access to the best teachers, state-of-the-art facilities, and even a reliable transportation service. My intervention had already removed one key element of Anya's leverage. The impoverished and struggling sister was no longer a weak point to exploit. However, I remembered the details of the accident vividly. The specific car, the week it happened, the method. Anya, with her theatrical flair, had always left a trail, albeit a faint one, for the careful observer to follow. One crisp autumn morning, a few weeks after our dinner, I received a frantic call from Serena. Her voice, usually so composed, was laced with barely suppressed panic. "Elise, I need your help," she choked out, her breath hitching. "It's Maya. She was almost in an accident." My blood ran cold. "What happened? Is she hurt?" I demanded, my mind racing, already piecing together the timeline. It was a week earlier than in the book, but close enough to trigger alarm bells. "No, she's fine," Serena rushed to explain. "Thank God. She was on her way to an early class, using the car I bought her with some of my consulting fees, the one I keep parked at our family home a few blocks from the academy. The driver, our regular driver, she said the brakes felt spongy. She barely managed to stop it before a major intersection." She paused, taking a shaky breath. "She took it to a mechanic, and they found the brake lines had been deliberately cut, severed just enough to not fail immediately, but enough to ensure they wouldn't work when needed." A cold, hard knot of fury formed in my stomach. Anya, this was her handiwork, undoubtedly. She hadn't been able to cripple Maya through financial means, so she resorted to pure malice. "Serena," I said, my voice deliberately calm, even as my heart hammered, "what did the authorities say?" "They're investigating," she replied, her voice trembling. "They think it was a random act of vandalism, but it feels too targeted, too deliberate. And I just paid off the car last week. It's practically brand new." "Listen to me, Serena," I said, my voice firm, projecting an authority I rarely used with her, but one that was necessary now. "This is not random, and it likely wasn't vandalism. I have reason to believe this was a targeted attack, and I know exactly who is behind it." I paused, taking a deep breath. "Anya Petrova." Silence stretched between us, thick with disbelief and shock. "Anya?" Serena finally whispered, the name laced with utter incredulity. "Why? Why would she do something so monstrous?" "Because she's not the angelic Anya you think she is, Serena," I explained, choosing my words carefully, revealing just enough without sounding unhinged. "She's manipulative, vindictive, and she doesn't like losing control, especially over people she considers her pawns. In her mind, you were supposed to be her loyal follower, grateful for scraps, not an independent, brilliant woman, achieving things beyond her wildest dreams. And Maya? Maya is a weakness she tried to exploit. When that failed, she resorted to this. I had to convince her, and quickly. Serena, I need you to trust me. I've known Anya for a long time. I know how her mind works, how far she's willing to go. I also know that she has been trying to regain my attention, and failing. This is her twisted attempt to punish both of us, to drive a wedge between us and to make me out to be responsible for the misfortune of your family. She would have framed me for it somehow. I recounted various coincidences from the book, planting seeds of doubt about Anya's character. What do you need me to do? Serena asked, her voice now cold, all traces of panic replaced by a chilling resolve. The steel that ran through her, the fiery protectiveness of her sister, was now fully awakened. First, I instructed, you need to go back to the mechanic. Tell them you specifically want them to preserve all evidence. Any tools used, any fibres, anything that seems out of place. Ask for the damaged brake lines to be carefully collected and stored as evidence. Then, you need to go to your family home. We have a robust security system provided by Vance Corp, installed there a few months ago for your peace of mind, I stated, knowing full well I had arranged for that installation long ago, anticipating this very event. I had them install a specialised covert system, hidden cameras positioned to capture not just the driveway, but also the underside of any vehicles parked there, especially near the wheel wells. I need you to retrieve that footage, specifically from the last 72 hours. I knew Anya's preferred methods. She was too clever or too arrogant to get her own hands truly dirty. She would hire a stooge, someone desperate enough to do her bidding. But even a stooge would leave a trace, and more importantly, Anya would, in her arrogance, likely ensure the stooge was paid or seen or captured on some footage, creating a link back to her. The Vance Corp security system was designed to catch precisely these kinds of subtle infiltrations, and I had instructed the technicians to install cameras with motion-activated high-resolution optics, sensitive enough to pick up minute details, even in low light. Serena, ever the meticulous scientist, immediately grasped the importance of every detail. Understood, she said, her voice sharp with purpose. I'll coordinate with the police, but I'll make sure our own team also collects and preserves everything. And I'll be at the house to pull the footage myself. I'll call you as soon as I have something. The waiting was agonizing. I paced my office, the familiar scent of rich leather doing little to soothe my frayed nerves. I felt a surge of protectiveness, not just for Serena, but for Maya, for the innocent who had almost been caught in Anya's toxic web. This was no longer just about dodging a plot. This was about justice. A few hours later, Serena called back, her voice tight with suppressed rage. You were right, Elise. The footage. It shows a hooded figure late at night tampering with the car. And then it shows Anya's car, pulling up just down the street, waiting. The figure got into her car and they drove off together. My hand tightened on the phone. Excellent, I said, a grim satisfaction settling over me. That's exactly what we needed. Now, compile all of it, the footage, the mechanic's report, any forensic evidence the police collected. Present it to the lead detective on the case, but make sure a highly skilled Vance Corp legal team is present. We'll press charges for attempted murder. Serena's breath hitched. Attempted murder? Absolutely, I confirmed, my voice cold and unwavering. This wasn't vandalism, Serena. This was a deliberate act to cause harm, potentially fatal. And we have the evidence to prove Anya Petrova orchestrated it. She tried to frame me to destroy you and almost killed your sister in the process. She deserves to face the full force of the law. The wheels of justice, or at least the Vance Corporation's legal department, moved swiftly. The evidence was irrefutable. Anya Petrova, the angelic female lead of the novel, found herself not chasing a reluctant Serena, but facing a judge. The shockwaves through the city's elite society were seismic. The innocent Anya revealed as a calculating, malicious schemer. The obsessed Elise Vance, not only entirely untargeted by the heinous crime, but instead the one who brought the true culprit to justice, her intellect and resources deployed with cold precision. Anya's attempts to spin the narrative, to play the victim, were utterly drowned out by the undeniable high-resolution security footage and the damning testimony of the mechanic. Her tears and claims of innocence held no sway against the irrefutable evidence. She tried to imply some elaborate jealous plot by me, but the prosecution, armed with the precise timeline of my generous support for Serena and Maya, easily dismantled her narrative. Within weeks, the once unassailable female lead was incarcerated, her world of privilege and manipulation crashing down around her, replaced by the stark, unyielding reality of prison bars. I received a call from Serena a few days after Anya's sentencing. She hadn't said much throughout the ordeal, often preferring action over words, but now her voice was soft, laced with a raw emotion I hadn't heard before. "Elise," she began, the name a warm caress. "Thank you, truly. You saved Maya. You saved me, and you saw through her when no one else would." "You don't need to thank me, Serena," I said, my own voice a little hoarse, a lump forming in my throat. "I just did what was right, and what was necessary. She was a poison, and she needed to be removed." "It's more than that," she insisted, her voice gaining strength, conviction. "You showed me that trust can be placed, and that true strength isn't about manipulation, but about integrity. You opened my eyes, Elise, to a world of possibilities I never imagined." She paused, and I could almost feel her sincerity through the phone line. "And to a different kind of connection." My heart hammered. This was it. The precipice. "Serena," I began, my voice breathy. Can I come over?" She asked, her voice softer now, tinged with a vulnerability that stole my breath. "I just want to see you." A genuine, unbidden smile bloomed on my face, warm and utterly real. "Always, Serena. Always." As I hung up the phone, I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office, gazing out at the vast cityscape. The last vestiges of the novel's toxic plot had been systematically dismantled. Anya was where she belonged, the cycle of she chases while the other runs, broken. And in its place, a new narrative was forming, one of courage, intellect, and genuine affection. The sun, finally breaking through the persistent autumn clouds, cast a golden glow over the city, a promise of warmth and light after the storm. My future, once dictated by the cruel whims of a fictional author, was now truly my own, and it felt infinitely better than any love-chasing novel could ever describe. This was my story now, and with Serena by my side, I knew it was going to be a beautiful one